let's jump straight into the topics for today without wasting any more time. I guess we're going to start with the news about the Martens because I think obviously it's very interesting and, that's where we should start our discussion today. So, courtesy of Only the Brave Group, it has now been announced that Glenn Martens is taking over from John Galliano as the creative director of Maison Margiela. I mean, this is not that crazy. It's something that we speculated about a week ago. I posted a video that was about whether Glenn Martens was going to Jean-Paul Gaultier or Margiela. It was really either of those two places. Of course, Margiela made all the sense in the world because OTB owns Diesel, which is a brand that Glenn Martens has been designing at for a while now. And they also own Margiela. So it only made sense that, Glenn Martens himself, he studied at the Royal Academy of Fine Arts in Antwerp. So did Martin Margiela. Glenn Martens is Belgian. There's so many parallels you can draw there. His aesthetic is very much deconstruction, reconstruction, plays with materials. It's very Margiela. I even have a quote from Glenn Martens that I'll read where he talks about how a lot of Belgian designers are influenced by Martin Margiela's work. So he said, people often mention the Belgian side. I think every designer from my generation has to have a Margiela influence because he created a new language that we grew up with and used to develop our own identity. I even think you could talk about a Margiela school in fashion today. So he even said that he is very much inspired by Margiela. So it made all the sense in the world for that to happen. I did see an article where someone was claiming that no one knew that Glenn Martens was going to Margiela, which is totally untrue. I think everyone knew actually. I think it was very obvious. So yeah, it should be very interesting. Of course, John Galliano had a decade-long tenure at the brand. This is going to be a totally different direction. It'll be good to see what he does with the couture at Margiela too. That'll be really cool to see. And yeah, I'm curious to see what he does design-wise, whether he's going to bring his deconstructed denim and the experimental silhouettes that he's been playing with at Y Project and Diesel and bring that to Margiela. It was very interesting when he was designing at Y Project and Diesel at the same time because he would test ideas with Diesel, and then when it came to Y Project, he would then expand those ideas that he's been testing. So I wonder if he's going to do that at Margiela, like test ideas at Diesel and then bring the more complicated ideas to Margiela after he's finished testing it. That should be interesting to see if he does that. But let's read the quotes via OTB on their official website. It says, OTB Group and Maison Margiela are happy to announce the appointment of Glenn Martens as creative director with immediate effect and look forward to the next chapter of the house, building on its unique codes and brand values. So there's a quote from Renzo Rosso. Let's see what he says. I have worked with Glenn for years. I have witnessed his talent, and I know what he is capable of. After Martin, who gave life to the Maison and its unique artisanal line, and John, who made it the most cutting-edge couture house in the world, I'm proud to have a third couturier at its helm. Glenn, who studied at Antwerp's Royal Academy of Fine Arts like Martin, has already shown his prowess and his vision in couture, which is definitely very true. I mean, we have seen couture from Glenn Martens before. This is not his first rodeo. I mean, when he was working at Jean-Paul Gaultier, he would have, been kind of involved in some sort of couture design. And we've, of course, then seen his own Jean-Paul Gaultier collection, which was really good and a lot of people liked. So we know that he's very much capable of doing couture and doing good couture. We've seen it before. So nothing new there, nothing surprising. And let's see what Stefano Rosso says. Maison Margiela is at a key moment of its history and on well-defined and solid tracks. The appointment of Glenn will further build upon the heritage of the house, which we are beyond proud to have in our group. Then a quote from Glenn Martens, I feel extremely honored to join the amazing Maison Margiela, a truly unique house that has been inspiring the world for decades. And I thank Renzo for the trust he is putting in me. I mean, at the end of the day, I think Renzo already has trust in Glenn because they've been working together for a while now. So, there's nothing really surprising. All this, we have trust that we already know that. Glenn has been doing very well at Diesel. And Money says, want these designers to stop spreading themselves thin. Yeah, I think it's tough. It is tough to be honest. When it comes to designers doing two houses these days, I mean, we have the likes of J.W. Anderson doing that. We have the likes. Who else is doing that? I mean, Virgil Abloh is doing that Off-White, Louis Vuitton. There's so many designers that seem to design at multiple houses. We had Kim Jones at Dior and Fendi, it tends to be a thing. I think the modern designers, you know, most of them design for two houses these days. I don't necessarily think it's a good thing. We have these conversations all the time when it comes to mental health and how there's a big issue with mental health in fashion. I mean, we have this discussion when it comes to McQueen. We have the discussion when it comes to Marc Jacobs, when it comes to John Galliano. I mean, these are designers that were worked really, really hard and ended up, having issues because of the workload and the stress and the pressure and all that stuff. So, in the spirit of caring about designers' mental health, I think it's very important that designers actually consider if they can do all this work at once because it is a lot. It is a lot of work. Anyway, going back to conversation about Margiela, which I think is really interesting. Something I've heard, just a conversation around, is that Margiela is pushing to be a $1 billion brand. And of course, that's a very hard feat to reach. I know Margiela is definitely makes hundreds of millions a year. And I thought we should go and look at the website and see what they have available right now, and also see where Glenn Martin sits within this whole thing to see whether, he could actually take over and really change things that would lead to more money. Because I think when I think of Margiela, what's probably bringing in the most money, probably the fragrances, because I think Margiela fragrances are so big and they are so famous that they almost go past the brand itself. There are probably a lot of people that buy the fragrances that don't really know about the clothing or know who Glenn Martens is or know about John Galliano or Martin himself and know about these things, but they buy the fragrances. And there are many fragrance YouTubers, fragrance influencers, fragrance journalists that always talk about Margiela in terms of the fragrance line, but they don't have a clue about the clothing at all. And so it should be very interesting because I've seen Margiela have been launching a lot of new beauty and fragrance products. Of course, they have the classics, Jazz Club, Sailing Day, Lazy Sunday Morning. These are very, very classic Margiela fragrances. But then I've seen some newer ones, of course, by the fireplace as well. That's a big, big classic. But I've seen newer ones that have been coming through, and they have candles, they have diffusers now, they have all sorts of things, and they have different limited edition ones. You can't see them on their website, but I'm very, very aware. And I remember there was a fragrance that launched not too long ago. I think during John Galliano's time, Mutiny. So it should be really interesting to see if they can push any more fragrances and if Glenn Martin, sorry, launches his own fragrance that does really well and actually helps them get closer to that $1 billion, figure. And Culture says really well. I hardly ever think of the fragrances. I mainly know the fashion. Yeah, because you're seeing it from a fashion point of view. But most fragrance heads I know, they don't know anything about the clothing, but they love the fragrances because it's cool. Like the Margiela fragrances are themed on a thing, by the fireplace. It's supposed to feel like you're by the fireplace. It's very incensey, woody. It's cool. It's supposed to transport you into a certain place that the fragrance is telling you it's transporting you to. That's cool. People like the concept. Lydia says the framework and other star products are already there. He would just need to add more and a general refresh to the vision, and Margiela could be $1 billion brand in a couple of years. Yeah, I can see that. I can see that. But then I also, when I think of Margiela, I don't think so. I know people in fashion that love the bags, definitely. Especially those like, I don't know what the names are, but there was a kind of like a pillow-ish bag that went crazy at one point. I don't know if people are still buying that. People definitely love that, but yeah, these kind of bags. People love this stuff, but I don't know why, like what they would have to do to make this kind of stuff more mainstream, because these are the things that go, right? The bags, the fragrances, stuff that everyone can wear. The problem with ready to wear is that you have sizing issues. Some people are tall, some people are short, some people are big, some people are really skinny. It's hard for people to buy ready to wear in big numbers, right? But when it comes to the bags, it doesn't matter how big you are, how small you are, you can just wear the bags. Everyone can wear the bag. A child can wear the bag, an adult can wear the bag, a teenager, a man, a woman. So this is where the money is. And I see a lot of fashion people, wearing a lot of Margiela bags, but I just don't really think it's crossed over into the mainstream yet. They don't have a bag that's so mainstream, the likes of a Jacquemus bag, for example, the Coperni Swipe. I think those brands that are trying to like increase their revenue, they need those kind of bags. They need a hit bag. I see more Margiela wallets than anything, and of course the footwear. Yeah, for sure. I do see a lot of the wallets. I do see that. But I do think that Glenn could really design like a bag that goes. I think the trappings are there. I did not know that Margiela has this many styles of bags. Damn, that's a lot. I always feel like they need to calm down with the bag designs because it becomes too many and people don't really know what's what. I think a lot of luxury brands, the reason why people obsess over the bags is that they become like cult classics. And I think the way that you do that is by having one style that you push every season rather than having this many different styles of bag. I think it's a bit too much. The wallets are cool. I had one with a glow in the dark 11. It was cool taking it out in the club. Look at the prices, it's very reasonable. Let's have a look. I mean, for this Grand Slam Classic baby, £1,000. I mean, considering the luxury market now, where like Chanel flat bags be costing, 10K and stuff like that, yes, the prices are definitely fair. I don't really have any experience with the Margiela bags at all, so I can't really speak about quality. But compared to the rest of the luxury market, the prices do seem. But yeah, so many styles. I had no idea they actually had this much stuff. As someone said, bingo, this is exactly why they need you. Maybe one day I'll work with Margiela. I want to see what Glenn would do with the footwear for the house. Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's a broken record at this point that the tabbies, I feel like they were always popular in fashion, but in recent times, tabbies have become more and more and more and more and more and slowly more mainstream. And I think it's only a matter of time before they really go mainstream. But that being said, especially for women, less so for men, but for women, I can definitely see them going a lot more mainstream, especially the styles that are more wearable. The heeled styles, maybe not so much because comfort, but these kind of like low ballerina, the mule versions, I can see these really going. I still think, even though Margiela obviously makes hundreds of millions, I still see it as niche compared to the likes of the Dior's of the world and Gucci, of course. So I don't know what they'll have to do marketing wise to really push it into the mainstream. Because I think aesthetically it could go. You just need to convince more people. But yeah, they have the tabbies, they have the Western boots with the tabby, they have the replica sneakers, they have everything in a tabby, like loafers, loafer mules, boots, Mary Janes, everything. Everything possible. They even have collaborations where they have the tabby split. They even have sneakers with the tabby split. So I do think though there hasn't been too much innovation with the footwear. John Galliano did do some cool things though with the footwear. When it came to like some of the runway shows, you would see like themed versions of tabbies that were really cool, like stuff like this, for example. That stuff is really cool. But I just think more innovation needs to happen. A sneaker that I didn't actually like from Margiela, I don't know if they still sell it, but it did really well commercially, was that sneaker that looked like it was glued. It looked like the kind of like sneaker that was deconstructed and then someone just glued all the different parts together to put the shoe back together, but they glued it roughly. What were those shoes called again? I've totally forgotten what those shoes were called. Yeah, the Margiela Fusion. There we go. Margiela Fusion. That was something that did really well commercially, but I didn't like it. Really weird. Yeah, like these shoes here. It just looks like the kind of shoe that kind of in the factory you just had some random parts, just random fabrics laying around, and then you just glued everything together with scrap fabrics and stuff like that. It was really, really strange, but people loved it, especially in menswear. And I think also it's good for them to have a shoe that's big in menswear because men in mass are not really going to wear the tabbies. I just don't see that happening. Fashion people wear the tabbies, men-wise, but I think the tabbies are more going to be, if they're trying to make it mainstream, it's really only going to be mainstream with women. So they need to, make sneakers like this that really appeal to other customers. But yeah, to me, did they appeal to me? Probably not. But I did remember they did really well. The Fusion felt like it was riding off the bump in Balenciaga hype on their chest shoes. Yeah, it was kind of around that era too. It kind of was around that era too. So yeah, people are saying, do you know what's funny? People used to call them the sea shoes. I won't, say the exact word just so I don't get demonetized. So we ain't going, we're not going to do that. We're going to do that. But that's literally what people used to call them, which is insane. Which is insane. But yeah, a lot of footwear styles too, which I saw someone mention. Let's have a look at some of their other accessories too, just to have a look. I mean, the wallets are really nice. Of course, they just have the signature for stitches. Some of them have the number system stitched on. Very cool. I think accessories like this will always hit because it's just like really clean, plain, and then you get the hype beastie 4 stitches to notes Margiela from a distance. They've got leather belts. This is cool. A little collar. This reminds me of. Do you guys remember when J.W. Anderson had those collars that really used to sell well? Yeah, so J.W. Anderson used to sell these collars, and people just used to buy them and then like use it to layer. So you'll just wear a t-shirt and then wear a coat over, and then wear this collar, and it would look like you're wearing like a funnel neck. But it looks nicer because obviously it's so tight to your neck, right? So it looks chic. But yeah, I remember when these like JW Anderson neckbands were all the rage. It's very interesting that Margiela has their own version of that, but it's actually like a collar itself. I feel like that would be a lot more difficult to style. But I like how they've styled it this way. Let's have a look at some more accessories they have. Also, the pricing, once again, Margiela definitely has an advantage when it comes to the pricing. The only thing that stands out to me, like, oh, that's expensive, is actually their footwear. I think their footwear, sometimes I look at the prices, I'm like, damn. But everything else, it seems a bit fair. Maybe they're ready to wear too. Some of it might be a bit spenny. But for the most part, compared to the rest of the luxury market, I think they've done a good job sticking to these prices. I love a collar revival. Yeah, we love that. We love that. So yeah, very interesting. I'm trying to see what else they got any more bags for us, bag styles. I mean, let's see what else. Yeah, I think that's it. But it's interesting to have a look at their product range because just looking, I think it's confusing. I think especially the bag styles. I think they should just stick to one bag style. And because what luxury brands do is they stick to a style that they are pushing. Givenchy did this. I mean, everyone does it. Bottega Veneta did this with the Andiamo. Like everyone does this. So you stick with one style. Those are the styles that your ambassadors wear. Those are the styles that you send to influencers. And then it has a higher chance of that specific style going. If you just make loads and loads of different shoes, different bags, different, it's just a bit too random and then nothing can really go. As a customer, it's good to have variety, but from a market, so they can keep all those styles, but from a marketing standpoint, they need to actually focus on very specific styles. Because I don't think marketing wise, they've actually really market. I literally cannot remember Margiela ever really pushing one specific thing. They just kind of push the runway shows and yeah. So I think the marketing, if they're going to get to that 1 billion, I definitely think a lot of work needs to be done in the marketing department. Of course, Glenn is going to make interesting things. It's going to have really cool and interesting designs, but I think marketing wise, that's something they can do. If the Margiela team is watching this, you can steal my ideas. Wouldn't the tote bag count as a typical Margelli style? I guess so. I guess so. I remember when they were doing those like paper tote bags, which is very Margiela, right? Because Margiela and like the paper and that texture is something that he played with a lot, like Martel Margiela himself. Glenn is 100% coming in to refine the vision and narrow down a lot because it is a bit hectic, and I do think there has been a level of confusion around the brand. Yeah, for sure. For sure. A bag, maybe the one to do it, but don't see Glenn leaning towards that direction. We'll see. We'll see. Because once again, if their goal is to get to that 1 billion, there aren't too many ways they can do that outside of bags and fragrances, to be honest. It's definitely a tabby is not going to make a $1 billion company, $1 billion brand. It's not going to happen. It just isn't. So yeah, really cool talking about Glenn Martens. I wish him all the success. I'm a big fan of his work. I mean, when he was Y Project, huge fan. So I'm just very much looking forward to what he does, and I'm very sure he will do a very good job.